This is Kristin.
And this is Steve, and you are listening to Cycling Together, the show about all things bikes, riding, and riding together.
It's another snow day.
Another snow day. Yes, back to back snow days going across the United States. I think a lot of people are experiencing this.
Yeah, it actually just started snowing. I am very proud of us. This morning we got out for a fat bike ride when we easily could have just stayed home and done all of our to-dos.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so glad we got out there. Lesson learned. It helps if you told a friend you would meet them and then you're like, well, now we gotta go because I absolutely could have seen us. We went at 10:30 this morning. I could have seen us being like, well, maybe we'll go a little later. Let's get a couple more things done. But because we had said 10:30,
and then the day gets away from you.
Yeah. And the conditions were pretty solid, I have to say.
They were crunchy and icy. We're probably only looking right now, as of this morning, we had, 3 inches on the ground, maybe 4-ish. But it was really, really crunchy with a lot of ice spots. And, this is the kind of conditions where a lot of people say, oh, you have to have spikes. You have to have studs in your tires. And we don't. And
okay, there were 4 of us. One of us had spikes, and he's the only one who took a spill.
Studs. Yeah, that's right.
For the record.
Yeah, that's right.
For the record.
On the ice.
Yeah, there wasn't that much. There was less ice than I thought there would be, which was great. And if you, kind of like when you're skiing, if you just go straight across it, don't try to turn on it.
No braking, straight, no turning.
And
yep.
I think the quote-unquote worst part was actually the footprints, because the people, and I'm not saying, of course they walk in it, but then they freeze. And so there are these little like, boom, 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 boom. But that's actually for just such a small part because, of course, in the snow, in the winter, people don't walk that far into the woods. So it wasn't too bad.
It wasn't too bad. Somebody had definitely, when we had the slush, before the hard freeze, they went for a walk in big boots and just left just huge holes. Yep. Big post holes all over the trail.
We did see one person had been there before us because we followed their trail for a little while.
I don't know if they got lost because they clearly had not made their way that far through the trail system. So I'm not sure. It was very limited, but yeah.
It's like we're tracking. But it
was good though.
Glad
it was very
we
good.
out.
It was really nice fat biking.
It is amazing though. At one point, you were like, "How far have we gone? 2 miles. You've got 2 miles."
Yeah, we ended up doing 5, but that was an hour and a half with an hour and 10 of moving time.
Yep, we did have one new fat biker.
Yep.
She borrowed from a friend. The friend might.
Oh, I didn't even realize she was borrowing the bike.
Oh yeah, I think she had fun.
Yeah, and now the
she was a very good sport.
And now, I think she had fun.
All right, so we are back. We are taking on part 2 of our series about mountain bikes and gears for speedy kids and teens. I am happy to say we've gotten great response to part 1. I think I had several parents and coaches listen to it, and they all said, great stuff. Like, thank you for covering this because we get so many questions. But you said there were a couple of other things that you might like to tag on to that with this episode.
We did focus a lot on hardtails. We focused a lot of entry-level bikes because if you have a large budget, you're going to get something great. So we tried to kind of concentrate on what you should look for and at the lower price points.
Because you don't want to say, is there anything is too much for a bike? And that's so subjective.
Sure.
It's not even a no. It's just subjective. Like what I think is too much for a bike for a kid is not going to match what you might think is too much for a kid. Or,
true.
So it's budget based. It's just, what do you think is appropriate to get your kids? Kind of the sky's the limit.
Right.
But we did want people who maybe would be game to spend more in a way that they would get the most bang for their buck.
Most bang for the buck. Because we talked so much about hardtail, I just wanted to follow up a little bit about the types of full suspension. We talked about how to watch for whether you're getting a cross-country hardtail or a trail hardtail, right? So in this case, with full suspension, it gets a little trickier because a cross-country full suspension, many of the brands now have 120 millimeters of travel front and rear, and that starts to get into a lot more capability than cross country bikes traditionally had.
Okay.
There's still many though that have maybe only 80 to 100. So if you're looking for that all out speed, then go for that cross country racing bike. But if you're looking for that do it all bike, right, that your child's going to have a really good time with out on the trails, in practice, in person with his friends, you're tending more towards that, what now is called a downcountry bike or the trail bike. And so you're looking in this 120 millimeters of travel up to even about 140.
There's a new Devo team near us called Blue Hills Devo, and they are actually for kids grades K to 5.
Yeah, which is
K. I want to see a little K mountain biker. Oh, dead.
You don't often hear development in a cycling team name when you're talking about that little.
But it makes sense because they're in development for NEYC. And as we talked about, those are probably the kids who are, I'm not going to say being dragged, but they're going to their siblings' race.
Right.
And they're like, oh, yeah, like I want to do that. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I have a kindergartner who wants to race bikes. What am I getting that child?
We did talk a little bit about how the little kids' bikes are sized by wheel size, and that has not changed. I mean, that's still the way all brands do it. 16-inch, 20-inch, 24-inch, and then you start to bridge the gap between kids and adults when you hit 26 and 27 and a half. Okay. So mainly there is that I wanted to mention a couple things. One is from a lot of brands a few years ago sort of started ditching the stuff little kids don't need, like suspension forks.
Awesome. Yes.
Because they were garbage anyway on these little kids' bikes.
Right.
And then they went for just a little lighter weight, simpler frames, and a little bigger of a tire, which for a 20-inch or 24-inch bike might be like a 2.4-inch tire, a normal size tire for an adult size mountain bike, but looks rather large in that smaller diameter.
It's out of proportion.
And that's great because they get more traction and you can lower the pressure, and it's just so they're getting a little bit more vibration absorption from the tires, from the lower pressure in the tires and so forth. You're often going to find there's kind of two classes there. There's sort of the this is what we're selling all the kids in 24-inch, say. Okay. And it's usually like a 1x8 setup, but it doesn't. Those 8 gears in the back they don't go that easy.
Oh, okay.
So they don't go as easy as they should. So these kids are not really getting a lot of the benefit, even the easiest gear the adults have. Okay.
Yeah.
There's not too much you can do about that. There's a little bit of customization you can do, but so now you're getting into the workings of the bike. And then there are some brands that make a more enthusiast kids bike, and they can use basically adult gearing. But where you get into the problem is that the big derailleurs on an adult bike are so big and the little kids' bikes are so low to the ground that derailleur hangs too low, and that's part of the problem.
Okay.
And so this we talked about Shimano Qs, and I believe they're coming out with a very special derailleur that's small.
Okay.
And it's designed for this kind of application to keep the derailleur up a little higher, but still use a bigger gears in the back. So, easier
How
gears
are
in
these
the back.
kids shifting? Are they using grip shifts? Are they using?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. So many of these bikes have we're gonna call it grip shift, right? But it's really most of them are Shimano, and in Shimano's is called Revo shift.
Okay.
So, but it's a twist, it's a trigger or twist style shifter.
Yeah.
That tends to be easier for little kids to operate.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going away with Qs. It might go to all, trigger style. And
that would make me
I'll
sad.
I'll have to look into that to see because a lot of times little hands can't push those trigger shifters, which actually can have a lot of resistance. The thing is, there are a few sort of boutique brands for kids bikes, like Woom, WOOM.
Yep.
And I will mention them because they make really nice kids bikes that are incredibly light compared to the competition.
Right. You recommend them a lot.
I do recommend them.
People come to the shop.
They're well designed, and you can get what I'll call real suspension forks on smaller bikes.
Okay.
There's a premium on that. They are direct to consumer.
Oh, there you go.
Yep.
So meaning you order the bike.
Yes.
And then either put it together yourself or.
Well, it's mostly put together out of the box.
Okay.
But yeah. But they are, they traditionally, I don't know if that's still the case, but they traditionally have a wait list.
We're done with the bikes for now. I'm sure it could be something that we talk about over and over again for hours and hours. But we're really going to be talking now about all the other stuff.
The kit.
Well, the kit. Why are you calling it the kit?
Because all that stuff, anything you wear on your body is kit.
So helmet, shoes,
all
of
kit.
that? Really?
Yep,
Oh, see, I thought just the clothing was the kit.
No.
See, I learned something new. Okay, well, let's start with the uniform. One of the things they did at the Dover Demon open house that I thought was great is they set up a pop-up changing tent in the shop where the kids could try on fit kits of the jerseys and the shorts so they could, before they place their order. I thought that was brilliant. That's where I also learned that they have two options.
Yep.
So option number one is a mountain bike jersey and baggy shorts. Can we just admit that most mountain bike jerseys are just T-shirts?
Yeah, they're just basically athletic material T-shirts.
Sometimes they might have a pocket for your pass or might have a place to, but these I think are just
and they might they usually have a little bit different of a neck than say just
like a T-shirt.
The normal, the normal U-collar.
And even the baggy shorts, I was talking to one parent about whether they had to buy the league shorts. And I was like, you only need to have a jersey.
Right.
That was number one. And I was like, and honestly, if you're not sure and you decide you need shorts later, you can just go to Sierra Trading and find a pair of shorts. That was option one. And then option two is what I'll call a more traditional bicycle jersey. So the full zip, pockets in the back, and Lycra shorts.
Right. What we know is that most of the older kids are riding in what we're going to call a full Lycra kit.
Yes.
So a more form-fitting full zip Lycra jersey and Lycra bib shorts.
Yes.
And that's the traditional. That's what professionals race in.
Right.
Cross-country racers race.
Yep.
Everyday mountain bikers and the younger kids.
Yep.
So in this case, often wear a baggier mountain bike jersey.
Yep.
And now, what you wear on your bottom is a little different for people. So what we tend to do is we wear our Lycra padded bib shorts.
Yep.
And then we'll wear a mountain bike short over that.
Right.
It's baggies, as they're called.
Yep.
So you sort of get that more casual look.
The kids are probably more likely to wear, if you got the baggy T-shirt, just riding normally. Like if they're going for a ride, they might grab their baggy jersey, where maybe they wouldn't go out in full Lycra.
Right.
It did sound like the kids, when they hit high school, they hit the varsity teams. That's when they tended to switch to the full Lycra. Probably because all of the kids are doing it.
Yes.
Right. You do have the pockets in the back, which is nice for having
gels
and whatever else you might have. So it really, as the parents and I were talking about, it was kind of like what was important to the kid at the time. Did they want something they would wear more often, or did they want the full Lycra? So as I said, it's a little intimidating going full Lycra.
The Lycra kit is more form-fitting.
Yep.
And it is lighter. These kids are racing in the spring, so we're really not having hot days. But it is, there's less things to get caught on branches and so forth. At the same time, that kit can get, if you crash or you scrape against trees and so forth, it can get damaged a lot easier.
Yep.
And that's why a lot of mountain bikers of all ages say we wear, and like us, we wear baggies over our Lycra shorts.
One of the parents and I talked about is, if they did end up buying baggy shorts later, I said try to avoid the ones that have like the snap-in liner in them. Because they just don't fit that great.
They make baggy mountain bike shorts, yes, with a liner. It's basically a Lycra short liner with a pad that sort of snaps in.
Yeah.
They do not. I have tried many of those over the years.
They've never been great.
All not great.
Yeah. And we also they did give the kids options between bib shorts and non-bib shorts.
Yep.
So that, and one of the, again, parents was asking me like, why bibs or non-bibs? And I was saying, look, I really like bibs. It protects from a plumber situation, which I will say universally everyone understood.
Yep.
Right. And also I was saying, let's say you have baggies on also, that's a lot of stuff on your hips.
Correct.
Kids don't necessarily have hips to hold this all up. Then if you add like a fanny pack or anything like that, that can just be a lot of stuff on your hips. Where bib shorts, plus they make you feel like a superhero.
We're just going to put this to rest here. Absolutely get bib shorts.
They're the best.
Just get bib shorts.
Right? They're the best.
If you haven't worn them and your kids haven't worn them, it takes just a couple rides to get used to the straps over your shoulders.
Yes.
Right? You're gonna be like, oh, this feels weird. And that goes away so quickly. And
and there is a face they make at you, and you're like, "Here's your shorts," and they're like, "Ugh." We did have this one littler boy who was just started out, and he tried on a full Lycra kit, and he came out. He's like, "I am ready. This is what I want." And I was like, "You go, man! Like you absolutely." So part of it's just what was the kid, what does each student want to wear?
Yep.
But you could see the parents kind of struggling with what should they buy their kids? Where were the kids going to be comfortable in? And of course, the kids only wanted to try on things with their sweatshirts on, so that was also funny.
If your kid wants to wear the full Lycra kit, I would embrace that.
Yes.
Right? Because that's where they're going to be heading.
Yeah.
That's right. If they stick with the racing, that's where they're going to be heading.
That's what the big kids are wearing. So that's just kind of a cool.
And that's what the pros wear. So if they're watching the professional races on TV, that's what the pros are wearing. Yep. Let's just talk about baggies just a little bit more in depth here, because this one can be very important when you're shopping.
Okay.
A lot of baggy shorts have gone this route of just being ridiculously long inseams. I mean, ridiculously long.
They're really like knickers.
Exactly. They begin to be like knickers.
They're like over the knee, like
culottes, whatever, right?
Culottes.
The reason is because this trend of having your baggy short go down below your kneecap, so that if you're wearing knee pads, then you don't have what's called the gap, basically. So you don't have an exposed gap between the top of the knee pad and the bottom of your shorts.
The top of your knee pad.
Right? I can see your a little bit of lower thigh, right?
I can see your lower thigh.
Yeah.
Gasp.
Yeah. While you're pedaling, now you've got this baggy short.
Oh, yeah.
Sort of just rubbing back and forth over your knee. If you're going to wear the baggy shorts, it is actually really important to find a set that comes above the knee.
Before we leave this topic, let's talk about other clothing that you wear.
Okay.
Because one of the coaches said to me that for the first couple of practices, he always carries a backpack just for the clothing that gets discarded by the children in their first practices, because they generally come wearing like sweatpants.
Well, the first practices are in March, and
they're in March.
It's cold, and you think, and of course the parents are like, it's cold out here. I'm going to bundle up here. You need another layer, and then they get out there and start riding, and first hill, and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to lose a layer.
Yeah. So number one is no like sweatpants, sweatshirts. I mean, just because those fabrics are so heavy, layers are key. And you probably have the kind of stuff, whether it's, long sleeve athletic shirts, t-shirts from the soccer team. Like it doesn't have to be mountain bike or bike specific.
Correct. Right. It does not.
Just athletic fabric can be really helpful.
Or wool.
The original athletic.
athletic.
Yeah, all those 9-year-olds with wool kick around, but the idea is that they have kind of these, they probably have stuff in their wardrobe.
Yes. Right.
Yeah, light layers are great. For me, I tend to focus, and I'll say I'm probably more temperature, like kids in my temperature sensitivity than you are. Mm-hmm. But I always focus on my fingers, my toes, my core, my ears, right? It's really easy to overlayer your arms.
Yes.
Where they get kind of like stiff. So vests are great, right? Like a vest on top of things is a great way to.
And you don't need to overlayer your legs. So as you just said, don't wear sweatpants. Don't wear big baggy cotton sweatpants out. Right. So this is where it's great if you have that base layer of a bib short.
Yep.
Right. So you've got the pad for the comfort on the bike.
Yep.
Now I know a lot of kids won't have that, but then on top of that, some sort of like if it's not going to be a mountain bike specific thing, like a track pant, something that's athletic fabric, not too baggy, right? A little tight, but not tight.
Like joggers, like the jogger style.
Yep. But nothing too nylon-y, which is slippery.
First of all, if they are standing in the parking lot before the practice and they are already hot.
Yep.
They're overdressed.
If
they're even comfortable, like you almost want to be like today for fat biking. As we stood there, I was like, I'm just a little chilly, and that's where I should be. Exactly. And I still was overdressed. So I know our team, or the Dover Demons, they actually give the kids also a screaming orange T-shirt for practices that they're required to wear. Because that makes sure they can keep an eye on everybody in the woods. I think it's genius. So that's a layer already that they're going to be wearing. All right, let's talk about pads. What do you look for in a pad that you think works well for mountain biking?
Oh, this is unique to everybody as well.
Okay.
All right. So
it's your show, so you can say what you think.
When I wear protective pads, I actually only wear typically knee pads, and they're really quite thin. The pad is thin. It's more of an abrasive protection. Okay. Sometimes I'll even wear them very early season as knee warmers.
That's true.
Right. Yep. And there's minimal hard impact protection on the ones I wear. Okay. Right. And then they make the ones with that special padding that actually stiffens up as it compresses.
Those are what I have.
Yeah. So
those are the
G-Form. Yeah. And so the G-Form's one company that makes that style.
I have the G-Forms. I have the knee pads and the elbow pads, and I like them for a couple of reasons. They are good on impact, but they're very lightweight. And I do like that they're a full sleeve versus like straps.
Oh yeah, so mine are a sleeve as well, and I agree. The full straps are not great on bare skin. They can work if you're putting them over, say, pants and so forth. But I think you're going to find kids complain about the itchiness and the scratchiness of straps. They're
probably kind of chafy.
Yeah, exactly.
They?
Exactly.
What about the other? I've seen like G-Form has like shorts but like what about the other ones for like your hips, or is that just old people pads?
No, no, not at all. Those are, you're going to find those, everybody going to a downhill mountain bike park. Where that's used a lot.
That's where they're used. Okay.
And so all that sort of extra protective padding, it's up to you. There's no such thing as, I suppose, but it gets hot and it gets heavy and it gets itchy, and so most likely for just general riding for these kids, you're not going to, and certainly not in the races, you're not going to be using like an overly protective pad system.
All right. Helmets.
All right. That's a big one.
There are differences. So again, if you were to watch the pros, they're actually racing in road helmets. Mm-hmm. And most kids are racing in mountain bike helmets. What is the difference?
A mountain bike helmet, the first distinction right away is any helmet with a visor on the front is going to be called a mountain bike helmet.
Right.
And period, right? And any helmet without a visor is usually going to be called a road helmet. But mountain bike helmets also have not all of them, but brand to brand, model to model, have a little bit lower of protection towards the back of the head.
Okay.
So they're a little bit bulkier around the back, and they come down a little bit further behind your ears.
Okay.
Just for a little bit more coverage in that impact protection area.
Okay.
That being said, that is about the limit or the difference between a road and a mountain bike helmet.
And tell me about MIPS.
MIPS. So MIPS is it's an internal system in the helmet. It's a Swedish company.
Okay.
That helmets, basically helmet manufacturers buy their system and put it into their helmets.
Okay.
Okay. And it's this cage that goes inside a helmet that rotates independently, slides independently of the outer helmet shell.
Okay.
So that if you hit the ground, right, and your head starts, and then the friction between the helmet, the side or the top of the helmet, and the ground is going to cause your head to then roll under itself. And so you don't want that sort of twisting of the neck.
Okay.
And so what happens is, as that outer helmet starts to get pulled under with the friction,
right,
the inner your head is against that inner MIPS shell, and it slides independently, keeping it more stable.
Okay. It's supposed to help prevent concussion.
It's supposed to help prevent concussions. It has shown to be better than helmets without MIPS.
For a while, we were selling helmets, and it was like, you can have this helmet, which comes with MIPS, and you can have this one that comes with a bug net. And I was like, we're done with that. Like, I can't. They're $15 difference. It wasn't that much.
There are many companies that have their own style of MIPS.
Okay.
So Laser, which is owned by Shimano, they have this thing called Connect Core.
Okay.
So that's again a way that this internal structure sort of collapses and then prevents the rotational injury.
Yeah.
I believe Trek has their own system.
Yep.
Smith might have their own system, but all of them are designed to do the same thing. One of the places you can go is if you search for Virginia Tech helmet testing.
Okay.
So Virginia Tech has a helmet testing laboratory for all types of helmets.
Yes.
And really nobody had this kind of laboratory. Every helmet manufacturer had to meet testing standards, ASTM testing standards. So they did their own testing, but Virginia Tech puts them through their paces better. Okay. And they'll give a star rating, 5-star being the best. Okay. So look for something that has a 4.5 to 5-star rating.
I was going to say, we think you should, when we buy helmets for our kids, let me put it that way.
Yeah.
And for ourselves.
Yes.
We select helmets that have some kind of MIPS or something else.
Yeah. In fact, as it was coming out and as it was then proven to be better.
Yeah.
Right. So all of a sudden, Virginia Tech, like all of the best helmets, all had MIPS.
Yeah.
We basically ditched.
The Brants got new helmets.
Yeah, we ditched all our helmets and got brand new helmets with MIPS.
Let's say you're a parent who's had an older child that road bikes and you have this helmet kicking around, should you pass it on to your... Okay.
No. That was a quick answer?
Yeah. Well, no. So what's the general rule on helmet age and...
The general rule is about 5 years.
Okay.
They do this. So helmets are basically styrofoam with internal meshing in that styrofoam to keep it together.
Yeah.
And then an outer plastic shell.
Yes.
And so, but that styrofoam degrades, and don't ever leave your helmet in a hot car.
Okay.
Especially not like on the dash or in the back in direct sunlight.
Right.
That can ruin a helmet in an afternoon, on a hot day.
Yep.
And a common thing I see is if you look at the very front of the helmet, so basically by your forehead, right in the center, that by your brow and so forth, and sort of really inspect the helmet, give it a little bit of just a tiny bit of flex. Older helmets will often have cracks in that area. So if you see any sort of cracking opening up in the styrofoam, that helmet is done. They are designed to basically break apart in an impact, and that breakage and that sort of shattering of the styrofoam is in itself protection that is designed to do that. So once that starts breaking down, it's not gonna do that properly anymore.
And we also should talk about fit. Once again, like helmets need to fit properly. And if there's one mistake I see a lot, not necessarily in the racing, but like when you're, say, on the rec path and you are passing kids and grown-ups with helmets on, they are tilted way back. And the helmet, as I say to people, is not to prevent injury if something falls from a height onto your head, like in a construction zone. It is if you go over the handlebars and land on your forehead. And if that is the case, then you need to make sure that helmet is on your forehead, over your forehead, that, you wiggle it around. It doesn't wiggle around on you.
Right.
You want to have a little bit, they have adjustments in them. And so I like one that has a little bit of adjustment room, maybe because you want to put a beanie underneath or you want to put a headband or something like that. So if it's like at its outer limit and you're talking to someone with a very big noggin, it can be hard to find. And not all helmets fit the same. Like you put a helmet on and you're like, oh, this one's
some are
weird.
a little bit wider side to side, and some are a little bit wider
front
length.
to back.
Yeah, front to back.
Some are deeper. Some are they're so it's important that you not just run into the store and grab a helmet for your kid.
Yeah.
Or if you do, make sure you can bring it back.
Right. What a lot of people don't realize is that many helmets have a depth adjustment at the very back.
That's right.
So many helmets will have a dial adjuster in the back.
Yeah.
So even though they come in different sizes, that adjusts the fit within that size range. And then right next to that, where that attaches to the inside helmet structure, there's usually a little bit of depth adjustment. And it kind of takes a little bit of force to pull it, and you'll see the notches. You'll see the little indentations.
Yeah.
It takes a little bit of force to notch it because you only do it once, and then you set it and forget it.
Yep. Glasses.
We get protective eyewear, safety glasses, basically. So they're clear. And so those are for overcast days, darker, when you're in the woods and it's a little darker out.
Yeah.
And, so you need that clear glass. So we get those kind of in bulk packs. They're cheap, so if you lose them, it's not a big deal.
Yep.
The reason for those is because there's a lot of branches out in the woods. And
bugs.
Bugs and dirt. And so it is really important to protect your eyes.
Hydration pack. Well, I call that a fanny pack, but you didn't say hip pack. Is that what we're calling it now?
You don't call it a fanny pack in mountain biking. Yeah, it's called a hip pack. In a race, though, you're not gonna wear a hip pack. You're not gonna wear a hydration backpack. That is not something that's really done in racing, except for long distance marathon.
I'm going to stop you there. I have worn and likely will do again a hydration pack while racing.
I'm not saying it's not done, but it's not a common thing.
You literally just said it is not done. Okay. It is not done. But also from the videos, I can tell you it is done. The kids do wear them.
Okay.
And I think it's because the other option is if you want to carry water, you're going to use a water bottle.
Right.
Which, if I remember correctly, one of us was racing Adam's farm and his water bottle got ejected through a rock garden. I think we have video of it. So that's one of the downsides to a water bottle.
It is, but a lot of times races are laps, and so then you already at the at each lap point if I'm doing a race, I have a water bottle tree, essentially a stand with water bottles set up, so I can grab a new water bottle the next lap around.
Yeah, or parents could hand off to the kids.
Or you can hand off in a feed zone.
I mean, I have to say, I do like having a hydration pack. I'm not winning any races, so let's be clear. But it's nice when I'm riding, and sometimes if I have a little trouble breathing, a quick sip of water out of my hydration pack makes a big difference. And so,
yeah, okay. Well, so it's really personal preference, and if your child wants the hydration pack, and so we were talking about the hip packs. Those have become really popular recently, replacing the backpacks. Yeah. It's a little nicer, keeping the weight down a little lower and off your shoulders. Yep. They don't carry as much water, but they carry a decent amount in their bladders that they have. The hose is now sort of connected on the pack around the front on the belt. So it's clipped down low. So you do have to reach down, pull it up to your mouth. Yeah. It's not sort of hanging over your shoulder.
That. I like it right there. Yeah. Like to IV me. Just give me the water right there. And the nice thing about a hydration pack is they can use it for practices to carry.
You know what? You're absolutely right. That would be a really good, appropriate choice for practices and for just general mountain biking.
Look at me changing his mind. Let's talk about pedals and shoes. And when we're talking about pedals, actually, one of the coaches and I were talking about this. They think it's a split about 50-50 right now between kids who are riding flats, pedals, and clip in, or what some parents may know as clip-less.
Right. And it tends to be the younger kids, the less experienced kids using flats.
Yes.
And the older kids using clipping in, and which was what the pros do as well. So yeah, let's start with the flats.
Yes.
So you basically have two choices when it comes to flats that are going to make a huge difference. The first is, well, what kind of pins or what kind of grip material it's going to have.
Right.
And so some flat pedals have molded nubs in the pedal, and that's just there to provide a little bit more grip on the shoe.
Right.
And most shoes will work with that kind of pedal. The benefit of that style pedal is, one, they're cheaper, and the other is that if the pedal flips around and hits a shin and so forth, hits a body part, it's not going to really it's not going to really hurt that much.
Yep.
The other style has a metal pin sticking up from them.
Okay.
And many of those metal pins, depending on the brand, can be replaceable because they will get bent and bashed and broken.
Yep.
But they're sharp, and they're designed to dig into the sole of a shoe. Okay. And so when your shoe is on that style of a flat pedal with those metal pins, it really is gripping the shoe.
Okay.
And so you can pull through the bottom of the pedal stroke as if you were clipped into the pedal.
Okay.
You can't pull up, but there's a lot of riders don't actually pull up on the backstroke.
Yep.
So there's still a good benefit there if you're using flats.
But they can whack you in the shin, and
they
can cause some damage.
They can cause some damage. They can cause some bodily damage to skin. Yep.
And when we're talking about flats, do you have to have a mountain bike shoe? Or will any athletic, canvasy type shoe work?
So with the full plastic kind, you probably can use almost any shoe you want.
Okay.
With the pedals with the metal pins, those work best on a shoe which has a flatter bottom, sort of very minimal tread. If you use, say, a running sneaker, an athletic sneaker that has big open lugs on the bottom, then you're not going to have a lot of contact with that pedal and those pins.
Right.
And therefore, you just won't be getting the benefit out of it. And in some cases, that really soft rubber and the high lugs on an athletic shoe can kind of catch themselves on those pins.
Yeah.
So it actually can be a little bit harder to use than
right. So let's say like Vans, right? I've seen kids wearing Vans.
That's the style of.
It's flat. It's a nice
sole.
Flat bottom. Yeah, it's a nice flat bottom type, but they're mostly laces. And a mountain bike shoe is going to have a different kind of closure situation than laces. Because laces can be, you remember our daughter, racing in a pair of tie shoes, and they came untied halfway through her cyclocross race. She had to stop, get off, tie her shoe, and then start going again. And then more recently, I was riding with someone who had tie laces. They came untied, and then they proceeded to wrap themselves around their pedal. I had to actually detangle them because she got stuck. So a mountain bike shoe will have that same flat bottom, but then some other mechanism for closure.
So mountain bike specific shoes will have a very similar low profile treaded bottom sole.
Okay. Yep.
And then they have, a different closure systems. Usually it's either BOA, which is a dial with cords that tighten down the shoe, a ratchet system, which is basically almost like it's a plastic serrated ratchet that goes in.
Right.
Or they will use laces, but then the laces have a cover that goes over the top. So they'll have a flap that, say, Velcros down over the top, so you don't have that. In the past, a lot of them just had a simple Velcro strap, and that just wasn't enough coverage. So usually you'll find a little bit more coverage now if they use laces.
Like a flap. Okay.
Mountain bike specific shoes also have a stiffer sole. So while you could say use Vans, those are very flexy soles.
Right.
So the power transfer is not there. And in some cases, if you have a pedal with really tall metal pins, you could actually feel the little just starting to protrude to the bottom. They're not going to really poke you, but you'll feel them.
Yep.
Whereas the mountain bike specific shoe has a much more rigid sole,
like a beefy
sole. And thicker and so forth to absorb those pins and provide a good solid platform to push on the pedals.
Okay. What is the advantage of clip in?
So clip in is when you have a cleat on the bottom of your shoe, and all mountain bike specific shoes designed to clip into a pedal, they will all have what's called a 2-bolt cleat system.
Okay.
So no matter what pedal system you use, you can screw that cleat, which comes with the pedal, not with the shoe.
Yes. Oh, okay.
All right, and then you can screw that into any mountain bike shoe. Now, if you turn a mountain bike shoe over that's designed for a cleat, you're going to see 4 holes. And that is only two are going to use side by side. And that's basically so you can position the cleat a little bit more forward, a little bit more aft.
Where it's comfortable. Right? Good
for
you.
So don't get confused by the 4 holes. There are only 2 of those will get used in all the mountain bike shoes.
And they tend to be...
pedals will use 2 bolts.
They're embedded in the sole, so you can walk around. It's not like
there's a recess between the lugs on the outside of the shoe, so that the cleat is recessed up between those rubber.
So when you get off the bike, you can walk around without.
Yep, or you have to get off the bike and run up a rock or something like that. Yeah, you have grip.
And SPD is one term you're going to hear. It's one style of.
That is the most popular. It's actually Shimano Pedaling Dynamics.
Okay.
And they were the originators of that style mountain bike pedal and cleat system.
Yep.
And it uses a small steel cleat that you screw into the bottom of the shoe.
Yep.
And then that clips into the pedal. Those pedals are double-sided, and all of these mountain bike pedals are double-sided. So you can sort of almost just put your foot down, and one of the sides is going to come to the top and be there, and you can clip in.
Yep.
And that patent ran out long ago.
Okay.
So there's a lot of companies who make SPD compatible or pedals and cleats, and a lot of them can be cross-compatible. So if you have, say, Shimano SPD cleats on a set of shoes and on a set on a bike, but you put Lux pedals called X-Track on another bike, you can just use the same shoe with that Shimano cleat in the Look pedal.
And anything else? Gloves.
Yeah, gloves are really important because if you fall, you just don't want to. Yeah, you don't want all that cuts and nicks and hand abrasion.
And the grips can be a little rough.
And grips can be rough
on your hands.
Yep.
So anyway, all right. I think that about covers it. We did have a listener message related to our last episode where our friend Jeff said, lots of Shimano, SRAM at the higher end. What? No mention of Campy? He was joking. He knows Campagnolo, right, is not maybe for these kids' bikes. But it did bring up a question for me, which is how come whenever bike people say Campagnolo, it's with reverence that I don't understand. And every now and then I'll see like a Campagnolo tool kit on sale for
$5,000.
Yes. What is that? Explain Campagnolo to me.
All right, so let's go over.
I have questions.
Let's do the quick summary of this. We have with the companies that make the component groups. We have Shimano. We have SRAM.
Yeah.
We have and then we have the third big player.
Yes.
Is Campagnolo.
Campagnolo. No,
made
you have
in
to
Italy.
Say Campagnolo. Campi. Okay. Sorry.
And there's other little players in the industry out there making all kinds of little boutique stuff and or copycat stuff and so forth. I am old enough to remember when Campagnolo entered the mountain bike market.
Okay.
This was 80s, late 80s, early 90s, I have to think.
You're aging up.
I know. And it did not go well. It didn't last very long. So Campy is Italian made, and it was always the top end.
Okay.
And it used to be beautiful stuff.
Like top end for like road bikes.
For road bikes. This is road bikes.
Got it.
Right?
Yep.
So it was just gorgeously designed, and back in the day it was beautiful polished aluminum.
Okay.
The smoothest bearings you have ever felt. Okay. It was very, very nice stuff. And then of course as things progressed and everybody had to stop making shiny polished aluminum parts and everything went to carbon fiber, and black was more the rage. They still made great stuff. Now I have Campagnolo on 2 of my vintage road bikes.
Okay.
And those parts are probably mid 2000s ish.
Okay.
And I love it. Right. It has a very unique feel to the shifters, unique function. What do you mean
a unique function?
Well, because everybody has, for road shifters, because of patents, everybody had to come up with their own design. So
like unique how it
operates,
okay.
how it shifts.
I mean, but ultimately it has a job, which is to shift things
Correct.
Up and down. Okay.
Yep.
So it still does that.
It still does that.
Okay, great.
Yes. They had very high leverage brake levers. So
I don't know what that means.
Well, so the power. I one of my bikes with Campagnolo, the power on the brakes is basically equivalent or better than many disc brake bikes.
Oh.
Now a lot of people would say, well, it has no modulation, but I like super strong power, and I like my modulation to come from my fingers, not from my brakes. But anyway, so.
Your modulation meaning if you are braking hard or not hard, you're choosing that.
Correct.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, the how quickly it would lock up the wheel and so forth, right?
Yep.
So sort of the power application. It's Italian.
You should just stop there. It's Italian.
Expensive. It's overly designed in a lot of ways.
Okay.
Right?
Are they still? I mean, are they still?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
You're not going to find brand new bikes with them anymore. And so that's sort of the sad thing. And everybody kind of says, I hope Campy sticks around. And and it's true.
But they're largely used for like rebuilt bikes, vintage bike. Like you said, they're still making parts.
No, it's for people who are going to custom build their road bike.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
Got
just
it.
road bikes.
That's why. But you said, when you say they're not, a bike coming out of the box from a manufacturer is never going to have Campy on them.
Right.
That's what you got.
So no, they do also offer a gravel group set, and in fact, it's a 13-speed gravel group set, which nobody else does yet.
Okay.
And no, SRAM has a 13-speed. I take that back. That's very recent, and that's very nice too. But it's expensive, but it's it works very well and it's very unique.
Okay. So a lot of it is the nostalgia. Campagnolo. Do we have a tech section for today's? Okay.
So this one is just hot off the presses.
Hot.
Yeah. There is a cross-country race going on in Chelva, Spain, and what was just spotted on some of the racers' bikes was a brand new SRAM brake, which is clearly going to be for cross-country since that's what this race is.
Okay.
And it looks to be ready for production because it's called the Motive. So the levers look basically like their current cross-country brake, which is called the Level.
Okay.
And I think it was probably time for a refresh of the Level.
Okay.
And then the calipers are looking sort of more angular, more meaty than they used to. And there's speculation that these are going to use mineral oil instead of the dot fluid that they have traditionally used.
That's the fluid when you're like bleeding the brake. That's the fluid
so
that's flying all over.
SRAM has always used dot fluid, which is the same thing used in your cars.
Okay.
It's corrosive. It's we'll call it toxic, if you will. But it can be found everywhere in the world. And that was part of the thing that they said. If you suddenly need brake fluid and you're at a race in the middle of Albania, and you're a mechanic, you can just go to the auto parts store and you can get the proper brake fluid.
Okay.
But again, because of its sort of environmental issues and so forth, they have been moving away from it.
Okay.
5 years ago, they came out with one little-known brake called the DB8, which had mineral oil. Nobody ever really used. A couple of stock bikes used it. Then they came out last year with their brand new downhill brake. So very high-end, nice brake called the Maven. Okay. And that used mineral oil. So now, and then that was started the whole thing about I think SRAM's going to start moving away from
Can you
dot
get
fluid.
mineral oil everywhere?
Well, no.
You can't?
So you really sort of need to use these special mineral oils that these companies provide.
Oh, you can't just get any mineral oil. You have to use their mineral oil?
Well, I'll talk about that in a second. But you don't have to necessarily use SRAM's mineral oil. You could use a third party designed for bicycle disc brakes.
Okay.
Now, SRAM will say you have to use theirs.
Yes, of course.
Which I believe is made by Maxima. They have a partnership with Maxima.
Okay.
Shimano is going to say you have to use their mineral oil. And these are specially formulated mineral oils that have a very high boiling point because brake systems get very hot. And so they can't, if you have too low of a boiling point, then you'll develop air bubbles in your brakes as it boils.
Right.
And you'll lose your braking.
So not going to CVS to pick up a bottle of mineral oil is what you're saying.
So that's what we were going to come to.
Just like Googled.
Can you do it? To be honest, it has been done and it does work.
Really?
Can you use baby oil in a brake?
Because it's $8.29 for a bottle of mineral oil at CVS.
Correct.
And it is $26.39 for a bottle of Shimano mineral oil.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what size. But that's what the Google all I typed was mineral oil and I got, that's a significant difference.
It is, and you need to use the bike stuff. So,
Okay.
and it's because of that. It's because of that boiling point issue.
Okay.
And some viscosity issues and so forth. It will not ruin your brake if you were to use the other stuff.
If you're in that race in Albania and the only mineral oil you can find is at
the
their drugstore,
Yeah,
that's okay. Not ideal.
Yeah, it's not going to ruin the seals and so
Okay.
forth. But then you would just
Well, that's
do a
important.
bleed and flush it out.
Yeah.
That's sort of the scene while scrolling.
Yes.
Oh, I will say these Motive brakes, like the Mavens when they came out, they did because it was a brand new brake, and they released it in this red color with a sort of a silvery splatter paint job.
Okay.
These are a mint green with a splatter, and I think it's going to clash a little bit to me.
With everything. We'll have a link in the show notes to Brujula bike. Is that where?
Yeah,
saw it?
Brujula bike. Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of a like Tiffany blue color. You're right.
It's going to clash.
But
it's going to be
match my bicycle.
It's going to be a limited edition release color, and then they're going to do something in black or silver or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. It is cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's all we have for this episode, which is probably long anyway. So why don't we wrap this up? Cycling Together with Kristin and Steve is a production of Steve the Bike Guy, an independent bicycle shop in Eastern Massachusetts, and Sundin Marketing.
If you like the show, please leave a review or share with a friend. For show notes, links, or to leave a comment, question, or topic suggestion, visit cyclingtogether.bike. And you can visit the shop, or you can follow the shop on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Steve the Bike Guy.
Thank you for joining the ride.
All right. We'll see you next time. Thank you.